It's on your computer end. There you go. We should be heard now on our video stream. That is 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. And it is also WIBW News on Facebook. Apologies for the brief technical difficulties for those of you watching the stream. Thanks for being with us. However you're consuming the program today, we're glad to have you. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski, just the two of us today. And for Brendan, just for a little while, because he's got to make tracks to Allen Fieldhouse tonight because there is college basketball on the menu tonight. A top 10 matchup tonight.
That's right.
At Allen Fieldhouse between number 1 Kansas and number 10 Washburn.
That's right.
Different polls, but still the top 10 matchup tonight.
Yeah, that as if this needed any more juice for yours truly, as well as, anyone else that college basketball is back. That's pretty cool. Washburn, the highest ranked team in the preseason D2 poll, who finished last year unranked. From unranked at the end of the year to top 10. Very impressive for Brett Ballard's group. Obviously, KU back at home at Allen Fieldhouse. It is going to be jacked up for the number 1 team in the country in Division I. So I'm super excited tonight. Excited to be on the call for that one. You can hear the Washburn broadcast over on Country 1069 tonight, 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock tip from Allen Fieldhouse.
Yeah, excited for all of it tonight. Excited to get to see the Jayhawks and Ichabods in action. K-State also tipping off exhibition play tonight. Jerome Tang's Wildcats taking on Fort Hays State. If you want to hear that one, right here, 580 WIBW and FM 104.9, your home for Wildcat basketball. Pre-game coverage starting right when we get off the air at 6 o'clock, and we'll have the tip-off from Bramlage Coliseum between the Wildcats and the Tigers at 7.
Pretty cool to get a big rivalry game in October.
Yeah.
No one's left on staff, or unless you want to count Gene Taylor as staff, but no one's left from the staff. No one's left from the roster from that game. But I know, K-State fans, that there are a number of you that know you're going to win this game by a lot, but really would like to see your team win by a lot tonight.
Yeah.
I know that December 2020 evening still resonates. I know it does.
I'm going to remember it forever, and I have no tie to either program. The fact that was a mid-table Fort Hays State team in the MIAA that year, and they showed up in December and smoked K-State.
Led the entire game?
Yeah,
the entire game?
Led virtually the whole way, led by double digits throughout the second half. It wasn't close. And, that was the nadir of the Bruce Goodball era. I liked Bruce Weber more than a lot of people seemed to like Bruce Weber. Had more regard for him as a coach than most people did. But that was about the moment it started to be pretty impossible to defend, or at least really hard to see a way back for Bruce Weber there in Manhattan. Now, of course, Jerome Tang's around. He's been to an Elite Eight. He's got a really intriguing roster, and excited to see what they do against, well, to be fair, pretty decent Fort Hays team, I believe. They've had a good run the last couple of years.
Yes, they are also predicted to be, I believe they were in both polls as number 2 for the preseason MIAA. They might have even been number 1 in the media poll.
Wow. So,
that's a good team.
Yes. So good MIAA teams taking on the in-state Big 12 teams tonight. We'll get to some hoops on today's program. We'll also talk plenty of football on today's program. The Chiefs are 7-0. Their record is perfect, but their roster is not. So we'll discuss which deficiencies are of the utmost concern for this Chiefs team through 7 games. And we'll talk about, Brendan's got an interesting point about the Josh Uche trade, which we discussed yesterday when it happened, the Chiefs acquiring veteran edge rusher Joshua Uche from the New England Patriots. What that trade indicates about how the Chiefs and how Brett Veach operates at the trade deadline. So plenty of Chiefs to get to. We're going to do all that at the top of the show. I mentioned some KU basketball. Obviously, it is Tuesday, which means Michael Swain will join us at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for Jayhawk Weekly. So we'll look forward to that very much. Have Michael Swain on with us for Jayhawk Weekly at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Michael Swain of Fog.net, 24/7 Sports, will help us preview tonight's exhibition game, and we'll also talk about the fallout from another football loss in the Sunflower Showdown. Also, speaking of Big 12 football, we were going to talk about this yesterday, but the Chiefs made a trade and altered the show a little bit on the fly. But The Big 12 is a lot of things, football-wise, this year. Unpredictable. Yes, very much so. Topsy-turvy, if you want to use that particular phrase. But is it good? I don't know if it's good. I don't know if Big 12 football is good.
Should we use the theme music?
We might be able to use is it good? Not going team by team, just broadly. The Big 12, is it good? We will discuss that later on.
Team by team, the answer would just kind of be, yeah, for all of them, all 16 teams.
Even the 4 that are objectively by record good. Half of those teams, I don't know if I could say definitively, yeah, absolutely, that's a good team. So that's where we stand in the Big 12 right now, and I don't think that's very good. And I don't think that bodes real well for this conference in the upcoming college football playoff, unless for one particular team, they lose the right games. And I'll explain what I mean by that a little bit later on. Plus all the other things you've come to know and love from a Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. We'll have our sports headlines. We got our final round of What Is Wrong With You for the month of October. We'll pick a champion today. They'll be one of the play-in winners for tomorrow's October semifinals, as we'll crown an October champion at the end of the month. We'll do a little random question Tuesday, and of course, your interactions with the programs throughout today. You can do so in one of two ways. First, the Top City Metal Supply text line, wide open for business. You can text us. 785-272-9429 is the number. 785-272-9429, the Top City Metal Supply text line. Also, you can interact with us in the live comments on our video stream. If you're watching on YouTube, we've got a live chat. Interact with us and other listeners to the show. And you can also interact via the comments on Facebook at WIBW News. All that established, let's jump into it, shall we? The Chiefs are 7-0. Champagne problems is what I often say when I refer to a team, an organization, a roster like what the Chiefs have. But there are 4 things I think that we can look at as developments through the first 7 weeks that have maybe been less than encouraging to this point. Those 4 aspects are as follows. Number 1, the cornerback play behind Trent McDuffie. Now, for 6 weeks, this was not much of an issue because Jalen Watson had leveled his game up and looked like that not only was he a more than adequate replacement for what L'Jarius Sneed had brought to the table last year, but looked like he and Trent McDuffie might have been the best 1-2 punch at corner in the entire NFL. You could have made that case, again, through 6 weeks. Then Jalen Watson broke his leg. And so now it's Trent McDuffie and a lot of unproven guys. Najee Johnson, Joshua Williams, Chris Rowland-Wallace. That's the roster right now at corner. That's 2 through 4 at cornerback. Is that going to be good enough behind Trent McDuffie? Early returns, let's just say they've been mixed for all 3 of those guys. So cornerback play behind Trent McDuffie is one thing. Left tackle play. We touched on this briefly towards the end of yesterday's show. Bill Barnwell of ESPN directly asking the question in his Monday recap column, why are the Chiefs sticking with Wanye Morris at left tackle? I think it is interesting, and it may not bode particularly well, that Kingsley Suamataia has not earned his way back into the lineup, because the suggestion is either that Morris's level of play has been good enough to warrant continuing to start, which I don't think is the case, and I certainly think it is harder to argue that that is the case after his performance against the Raiders on Sunday. Or it suggests that Suamataia, who very clearly had a lot to work on in his first 2 games, so I got benched in the first place, has not made enough progress away from Sundays, the stuff we can't see, the stuff in practice. There hasn't been enough progress there for Suamataia to win the job back. Neither one of those things is super comforting. So left tackle play remains, to a level, a concern. The third aspect, the play of the wide receivers. Now, obviously, the Chiefs have addressed this with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, and eventually they'll get Juju Smith-Schuster back from injury, though for how long at a time is certainly questionable given Juju's injury history. Also, Travis Kelce came out the first 4 weeks and did basically nothing. Now, the last 4 weeks, as Matt Verderame, our NFL insider, laid out for us yesterday, he's played the last 4 games like a tight end on a 100 catch pace. So maybe Kelce is finally returning to form, but broadly, is this wide receiver group trustworthy enough with DeAndre Hopkins learning the offense, with Juju Smith-Schuster delicate, let's just say, with Rashee Rice already out for the season and Hollywood Brown out for the long term, and with Travis Kelce finally beginning to show his age. And then the last thing that has been a concern are the turnovers from the best quarterback in the world, Patrick Mahomes. He's up to 9 interceptions in 7 games. And he's throwing one just about every week. Not all of them are his fault, but they keep happening. And the Chiefs have remained in the habit that they were in for much of last regular season of turning the ball over and not winning the turnover battle at the end of the game, at the end of the day. So those are the 4 things that I've identified as concerning to a degree. Cornerback play behind McDuffie, left tackle play, pass catcher play, and Mahomes' interceptions. Brendan, let's rank them from bottom to top. Let's go with least concerned about to most concerned about with these aspects of the Chiefs.
All right. I will start with what is probably controversial to some, and I think that's because a lot of folks don't know how to watch football outside of just watching the ball and watching the quarterback. And that sounds outrageously pretentious of me to say out loud like that, but I do think there's a point to it. Of the least concern is Patrick Mahomes throwing interceptions to me. Is it a problem? Yes. Is it as devastating as not being able to protect his blind side? Is it as devastating as having a constant big playability for the opposing offense because CB2 is not in position or not talented enough? Is it as concerning as a bunch of guys who can't get open for the quarterback? No, I don't think it's as concerning as any of those things. And you would obviously prefer that Patrick Mahomes not be throwing interceptions. I think this is a year in which he's, I don't want to say regressed to the mean completely because that's giving credence to those dumbass YouTube videos and Twitter videos we get every year. Oh, well, actually, Patrick Mahomes, if you watch the film, should have had 30 interceptions. Here's all of them.
Bo Nix better? Question mark?
Yeah, like, oh, wow, you clearly don't know anything about anything, but cool YouTube video, bro. Like, he has, I think, regressed a little bit in that he has had some unfortunate ones. The interception he threw against the Raiders this weekend, that was
not his fault.
Not entirely his fault. The ball was batted way up into the air. It was like a Raider was fielding a punt, whoever it was who ended up picking him off. I don't think this is a huge problem. I think if you put too much weight on this, you run into the issue that I think a lot of the NFL ran into with Josh Allen this past year. In clutch time, the most important and best player on the field. Compare that to, for example, and I know there's a huge gulf between these two players. Compare that to, well, I don't know, a guy who started and lost last night, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones throws a lot of interceptions because he's incompetent. Patrick Mahomes throws a lot of interceptions because, well, his receivers aren't very good, generally speaking, or haven't been anyway. And again, my belief is that he is always testing what he is able to do. He is always in a constant stream of trying to test out how, what the limits are that this offense can achieve. That's why I think he throws interceptions. He has to do the Superman stuff just like Josh Allen has to do. So that's of the least concern to me.
Yeah, I guess I would say of least concern to me is the receiver play and the play of Travis Kelce for the reasons that we kind of enumerated on Monday. They've addressed the receiver issue with Hopkins, and I think that that's going to make them a lot better at that particular spot. Kelce's last 4 weeks have been a lot better than his first 3, and we may have just overreacted to small sample size theater. Now, we're not getting prime Travis Kelce. I don't think anybody expected necessarily for 35-year-old Travis Kelce to produce like 32-year-old Travis Kelce, but the Kelce they got can still do a lot of really good things in this offense. So they're going to get Juju back eventually. There's a lot more talk now about having Hollywood Brown back by the end of the regular season. I don't know if you've noticed that, Brendan, but it's certainly something I've noticed in recent days, that the talk about Hollywood Brown is not, oh, well, they'll see him in the playoffs too. He'll be back by the end of the regular season. So I don't know if his rehab is progressing more positively than they anticipated, but it sounds like they might get him back sooner than anticipated, and that he's going to be somebody they can activate by the time the postseason rolls around.
That would drop. If Hollywood Brown is able to get back even by playoff time, that would rearrange my list, and I would put the receiver core as the least concern, because I think the Chiefs, and I really have to keep reiterating this, they just need someone who can go win. They need someone who, on an important down, fourth quarter, third, fourth down, whatever it ends up being, can you go matched up one-on-one with their best guy, their second best guy, whatever on that defense, and go win, whether that is out jumping someone, making a contested catch in a tight window, beating someone with separation, whatever. Who is going to do that? I don't think Travis Kelce is that guy anymore, because again, he's 35 years old. That happens to tight ends. DeAndre Hopkins is closer to that guy. I'm not sure exactly how much he has left in the tank, but I think there is certainly something left there they can use. You add in that speed element again in Hollywood Brown, and no disrespect to Justin Watson, but not quite the player. He's speedy. He's a good deep threat. Well, he's a clear-out guy. That's what Justin Watson is. He's a clear-out guy. You add in the real speed of Hollywood Brown, and suddenly you've got the speed threat, you've got the underneath threat, you've got the jump ball threat. They might not all be perfect at this point, but you have all those things together. So I would couch my opinion with, if Hollywood Brown does come back, switch my number 3 and number 4. That should tell you, though, I'm not especially worried about either of those things.
Yeah, I'm not either. And I have the Mahomes interception thing third, because there's always going to be an element of Mahomes that will take some risks. Like, we've known that since he was coming out of college, and he hasn't been an interception machine by any stretch, but he'll let it rip and he'll take some shots down the field. And those are the passes that get intercepted the most often. So he has to tamp that down. Nobody's more aware of it than he is. I think his decision-making has been a lot better the last couple of games, even though he threw 2 interceptions against 49ers. And I don't think either of them necessarily was his fault. And I don't think the one he threw against the Raiders was his fault either. So I think the decision-making has improved from him from some early struggles. And I don't think that's going to be a long-term problem either. So we've decided that those two things are of the least concern, which means we agree that cornerback play behind Trent McDuffie and left tackle play are the greatest concerns. Of those two, Brendan, which is the bigger one?
I lean with the cornerback play, because I think you can live with the offensive line, and the Chiefs have lived with the offensive line, because you've got 4 stellar talents: left tackle, left guard, center, right guard. Joe Thuney is an all-pro. Creed Humphrey should be an all-pro. I think he's the best center in the NFL, right next to Frank Ragnow. Trey Smith is playing really good football this year. I think he's playing his best football of his career this season. And Juwan Taylor, you pointed it out yesterday, Dan, he had an incredible game on Sunday against the Raiders. He's playing really well.
We've hardly talked about Juwan Taylor this year. He was a storyline from week 1 on, because Chris Collinsworth bullied the NFL into calling his kick step a false start, essentially.
So I think if you've got 4 dudes who are playing at that high of a level right now, you can live with your left tackle not being great. And would I like it to be better? Am I worried about the individual futures for Wanye Morris and certainly Kingsley Suamataia? Yeah. But as it pertains to the 2024 Kansas City Chiefs, I'm not as worried as I am about trying on the fly to figure out who makes more sense: injury-prone Najee Johnson or potentially regressing Joshua Williams. That's a bigger worry to me. Again, similar to the first 2 we talked about, I don't think either of these is a fatal flaw. It helps that the Chiefs have good safety play, because safety play can really help out your cornerbacks. And Justin Reed has been fine this year. We're both big fans of Brian Cook, even though I think he's been a little spottier over the course of the season so far. I don't think it is a fatal flaw, but I do think that is your biggest worry at this point, because the problem, if you don't have at least decent cornerback play on the opposite end of the field from your number 1, Trent McDuffie's never going to see a pass, which, like, it tells you how good he is. That's a lot of respect for 22. He's that good.
Isn't that, like, you can spin that to a positive, though, right? Because you're shutting off half the field.
True.
You're making a quarterback look one way to make a play. And if you know that, you can alter your blitz packages. You can line up guys in advantageous situations and say, okay, if you're not going to try Trent McDuffie, good luck on the other side of the field too, because we're going to make it extremely hard for you with the coverages we run on the other side of this.
You can shade the safeties in that direction too. I agree, and I think that is the counter for Steve Spagnuolo. You can find other ways to help because McDuffie is so good, but I do think you can go up against certain offenses that can put you in a bind even if they're only operating with 2/3 of the field, outside the hash marks on the right-hand side, you can't touch it because McDuffie's over there, left-hand side, whatever. The best offenses in the league are still able to find ways to move the ball. So that would be my biggest concern. I think most other contenders have bigger concerns than that, but that would be number one for me.
Yeah, no team is concern-free, certainly. I would argue, though, that left tackle is a bigger concern. Here's the reason I'm not as concerned about cornerback play. We've seen Joshua Williams do it. We've seen him play at an above average level, maybe not for an extended period, like weeks at a time, months at a time, but like snaps at a time, games at a time. We've seen it from Joshua Williams. It's in there. I think maybe he's a little rusty. His snap count was a little low early on this season. Why would you have taken Jalen Watson off the field anyway? I think that maybe we're being a little too hard on the bad penalties he took on Sunday and feeling like maybe he was worse than he actually was because of the penalties. I think there's still something there with Joshua Williams. They're really high on Chris Roland Wallace, and they've been high on Najee Johnson, who, again, that's another guy who needs to shake off the ring rust. But the thing about the defensive backfield for the Chiefs is they always seem to find contributors, and they always seem to have guys get better as they go, improve as the season goes along. They're exceptionally well coached. They're exceptionally well schemed and well drilled. I think they'll find an acceptable solution to the point where we won't even be thinking about it by the end of the season. I think they'll find, and whoever it is, I think it'll probably end up being Williams, although I thought Roland Wallace had certainly shown some good things in the early stages of his young career. But I think they're going to find a guy on that other side who plays the way that the Chiefs need him to play. They don't need another Trent McDuffie, but they just have to have somebody on that other side who can be physical, who can hold their own in man coverage. I think Joshua Williams has the traits to be able to do that. What I am not sure about is that either Wanye Morris or Kingsley Suamataia in 2024 have the traits of playing an average left tackle. And the reason that is of the greater concern to me is because if they screw up, Patrick Mahomes could get hurt.
Sure.
And that's the season, right? Like, that's the whole season. Like, Joshua Williams's failures do not impact the fortunes of the Chiefs in a way that Wanye Morris's failures could potentially impact the fortunes of the Chiefs. And I'm worried about that on another level, which is Kingsley Suamataia should have been back in the lineup by now. If he were that guy, if he were making progress, if they were pleased with what they were seeing from him behind the scenes, Wanye Morris hasn't been so good to not get replaced. He hasn't been Lou Gehrig to Kingsley's Wally Pipp. That has not happened. So the fact that Suamataia can't get back on the field yet has me concerned about Kingsley's future, and that's not how you want to feel about a second-round pick 7 games into his NFL career. So I have a short-term concern, I have a long-term concern, and a bit of this is probably over-dramatic, but an existential concern for the Chiefs at left tackle, more so than it's an existential concern at number 2 corner.
Totally understand where you're coming from. I think those are all fair points. I would like to provide one more stat for the sake of my argument. Small sample size. Joshua Williams has not played a ton so far this year. His passer rating allowed is 138.2.
That's not what you want to hear.
No. Now, again, small sample. And corner, like any position, the more reps you get, the more time you're actually on the field, the more of a rhythm you can get into. That is concerning, though, to me. But I understand what you're saying, and I think the Raiders game is a great example of that. Patrick Mahomes comes up limping. Why? Well, Wanye Morris blew an assignment.
Yeah, Wanye got beat by somebody who's not particularly a great pass rusher here in Caleb on Chasen. So that's why it's that level of concern. What say you? We want to hear from you listening. The Top State Mail Supply text line, 785-272-9429. You can also get at us in the live comments on YouTube. Lori is in agreeing with me. That's 1 point for me. We are keeping score. The final score of this debate matters. Bragging rights are important on this program.
I'm going to text my wife.
Okay.
Which of these is more important? By the way, the answer is corner.
1 out of 2 Abbies married to 580 Sports Talk hosts thinks that Brendan is correct.
50%. I'll take half credit.
50%. We do want to hear from you. Let us know. We got some basketball to talk about, some more Chiefs. Jayhawk Weekly coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. We'll talk some Big 12 football. We're just getting started on this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Back after this. .35 on 580 Sports Talk. We're just getting rolling on this Tuesday edition. Dan and Brendan running the two-man game with you today. Chiefs made a trade yesterday. We discussed it on yesterday's program. If you missed it, you can catch it on Spotify by searching for 580 Sports Talk. We are on Spotify. You can take us anywhere you go in podcast form, hour-by-hour breakdowns, or you can find the podcast on 580wibw.com like you have maybe grown accustomed to, or you can watch archived video on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Josh Uche is the newest Chief.
We should note, by the way, Joshua. He prefers Joshua.
Okay. I have been alternating back and forth, but if his mama called him Joshua, I'm going to call him Joshua. How about that? Joshua Uche. He is the newest Chief. He is a pass rush specialist, and he is very good at rushing the passer. And you had an interesting thought about this, because the reaction across the league and across like the NFL internet, NFL Twitter, has been a lot of variations on the theme. Man, that great Chiefs defense just got way better with the addition of Joshua Uche, and they've loaded up their pass rush with the addition of Joshua Uche. You think this is a bit more impactful even than that suggestion?
I do believe that. So I will ask you to lead this off. I'd like to start my point with a question. 32 teams in the NFL. Where do you think the Chiefs rank in number of total pressures this year? This is according to Next Gen Stats and NFL Pro, by the way, which is the most accurate of the pressure numbers.
You know, I think I've seen numbers like this that would suggest the Chiefs are pretty high in pressure. The top 10, maybe even top 5.
15th.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They're 15th in total pressures. And again, different places count that number differently. It's a little different from Sports Info Solutions, which is what Pro Football Reference uses. I subscribe to NFL Pro, so I get the Next Gen Stats numbers. Okay, but that is determined by number of times you're rushing the passer, right? Different numbers of pass rushing downs. How often are you actually sending guys, etc. So how about pressure rate? Where do you think the Chiefs rank in terms of pressure rate? So that's how often you pressure the quarterback on a pass rushing down.
Well, if they're middle of the pack in total pressures and teams are throwing a lot against them, maybe closer to the bottom.
17th.
Okay.
They are higher in total pressures than they are in pressure rate,
okay,
which is very strange. That is not like a normal thing. For a lot of teams, you have a higher pressure rate. You just might not get home quite as often, or again, it depends on who you face, your schedule, how many running teams versus pass-heavy teams, whatever. So the Chiefs' pass rush has gotten good individual performances. I think the last 2 weeks, George Karlaftis has been really, really good.
Yes.
Chris Jones is obviously great. He's going to be a borderline Hall of Famer, maybe a shoe-in Hall of Famer at this point. You're going to get Charles Omenihu back, we think, at some point. Probably Turk Wharton has given you some good snaps. Like you said yesterday, Felix has not been a total wash. He's given you something. He's given you a flash here and there, makes you think he's a useful player. But this actually hasn't been as productive of a Chiefs pass rush as maybe we normally would have thought. They rank a little bit higher in terms of total number of sacks, which generally indicates, if you're speaking from a statistical standpoint, if you're getting a lot of sacks without a ton of pressure, that's really not sustainable. What's sustainable and what front offices, smart front offices anyway, look at is the pressure rate. That's why the Chiefs drafted George Karlaftis. Remember, he had 2 sacks his senior year at Purdue?
I do.
And there were a lot of draft people that I engage with in the football sphere, who were saying, 2 sacks at Purdue, that's not really grabbing me. But he was top 20 in the whole country, all of FBS in pressure rate when he was there. And the Chiefs said, we believe pressures are more repeatable than sack numbers. And they're right about that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Absolutely true. So I think this is actually an even savvier move by Brett Veach, given what the Chiefs gave up to get Joshua Uche, to go get a guy who's going to rush the passer. He ain't going to set the edge. He is not going to do any of that. Like we said yesterday, he is the inverse of Frank Clark. He is not setting the edge, but he can get after the quarterback.
This is a point-and-shoot pass rusher.
Yes, which is great. That's a very valuable player, especially if he is edge number 4.
Especially when you play from ahead.
Yes.
As often as the Chiefs do. And put teams in passing situations as often as the Chiefs do. A, because, as I mentioned, they're playing from ahead, and B, because they're so good against the run. That teams are not in 3rd and medium, 3rd and short against them. Teams are in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. They're living in these 3rd and long behind the chain situations. So a guy you need is somebody who is going to alter the quarterback's plans and mess up their day on 3rd and long.
And the thing that helps too, you have linebackers you can trust. Yes. You know that you've got run support from Drew Tranquill and Nick Bolton and Leo Chanel. I don't think every team in the league could use Joshua Uche. I really don't. I think there are teams. I think of Green Bay. I think of my favorite team. Could use some pass rush help. Linebackers, young and shaky. Best linebacker's a rookie. Second best linebacker is a street free agent from a year ago. Don't know that you can get that sort of backup run support if you have that guy off the edge who's doing nothing but getting after the quarterback. For the Chiefs, though, it's a great situation. And I don't want to say it's more desperate, but I do think this is a more aggressive move by Brett Veach and the front office of the Chiefs than we gave it credit for. Because if you just say, the rich getting richer, it's like, oh, yeah, a nice luxury addition. I don't know that this was actually a luxury, to be honest with you. I think this was the Chiefs making a very steady move. I compared it yesterday to the Royals signing Paul DeJong. We have this hole. We need to fill it. Let's go. I am even stronger in that belief that it's not a hole, but it's something that could be shored up that we thought in the preseason it was better than people around the team did. Matt Derrick, Nate Taylor, they told us preseason, hey, Don't be surprised if the Chiefs are in the market to add some more depth. They already added Cam Thomas right at the end of training camp. That's been whatever. So you go out, you continue to shore it up. That felt like a very aggressive move by Brett Veach to me and a very savvy move. So I like it even more today after going through the numbers. I have a bigger picture thought that we don't have time to get to about the Chiefs went out and they didn't just add a wide receiver. They added a big name, borderline Hall of Fame receiver. They didn't just add a scrap heap edge rusher. They went out and got a dude who has 20 and a half sacks in 4.5 years, like a really good player. None of the beat writers have completely shut down the idea of maybe they go and see what's out there at corner, even a cursory view. I am starting to lean a little bit toward the Chiefs might feel like a transition year is coming in the not too distant future. You got a lot of dudes up front who got to get paid, including Joe Thuney, who's old, relatively. Travis Kelce I would not be surprised if when his contract is done, he's just done. Would not be shocked about that. You still don't have a whole lot of future wide receiver depth. I wonder if this trade deadline for Brett Veach, not that they're going to punt next season or anything, but feels like, hey, let's go make sure we make the most of this great chance because next year or 26 may not be as great of an opportunity to get there based on the age of some of the players on this roster.
And we had speculated they might do that anyway, given the uniqueness of the opportunity in front of them to go win a third straight Super Bowl, which, again, no one has ever done. We'll take a short break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we're going to pivot to some college hoops. KU, K-State, and Washburn all in action tonight. We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. There is basketball tonight at both Bramlage Coliseum and Allen Fieldhouse. K-State taking on Fort Hays State in a men's basketball exhibition, while KU welcomes Washburn in their own exhibition game tonight, also a 7 o'clock tip. We'll start briefly with the K-State game first, as that's the game you can hear right here on your home for K-State Athletics, 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Pregame starting at 6 o'clock, so right when we get done here on 580 Sports Talk, right up until the tip-off at 7. Three things I'm looking for or interested in about K-State tonight. First game for this group under Jerome Tang. Number one, how fast could they play without being too fast? Turnovers have been an Achilles heel for Jerome Tang's teams, really over his first 2 seasons at the helm. He wants his teams to be able to play up tempo and play fast. Last year, they tried to do that and they didn't have a real point guard. And the end result of that was some sloppiness when, like, it's Arthur Kaluma trying to bring the ball up or Tyler Perry trying to bring the ball up. Like,
you could have ended that sentence with, if it's Arthur Kaluma.
Or if it's Will McNair trying to bring the ball up. Like, it's going to look different, should look a lot different with the likes of Doug McDaniel, bona fide point guard. Coleman Hawkins, versatile player who has that ability to make plays with the ball in his hands. If he's your point forward, bringing the ball up in transition, that's going to look better than it did when it was Arthur Kaluma doing it, or it should. So how fast do they play tonight? How much do they get out and try to run and try to do things in transition? Because that's going to enhance their chances to be a much higher scoring basketball team and a little less reliant on 3-point shooting than I think you want to be.
2 quick hitters here. One, do you remember where Arthur Kaluma is now?
No.
Texas.
Okay.
He is the latest player to be convinced by the Rodney Terry grift that Texas is actually a good basketball program these days. Secondly, fair or unfair, this statement. The K-State player with the most individual pressure upon his shoulders this season is Doug McDaniel. Because I think he might not be the best player on this K-State roster, maybe not even the highest ceiling. I think that's a chore. Or when Coleman Hawkins, obviously all the fanfare. Mm-hmm. But if they want to play that style that we expect them to play, the up and down, shoot it a lot, play fast, play kind of chaotically, I think he has to be really good. He can't turn the ball over, and he hasn't in his career so far. Uh-huh. He was good at that at Michigan. But for this to work, I think he's got to play really well. I think he's got the most individual pressure of anybody to play at that level of expectation. Because anything less than that, if his assist-to-turnover ratio, for example, is closer to 1-to-1 than it has been 2.5-to-1 over the course of his career, I think that shakes up the offense and not in a very good way.
No, I think that's a fair argument to make, and I think he's certainly capable of being the kind of point guard, playmaking point guard that this offense really thrives with. Other things I'm looking for K-State tonight: how do they use their bigs on an individual level? Like, what role do they have Coleman Hawkins in? What role do they have Achor in? What do the minutes look like for Ugonna Onyenso? Do they play Baye Fall, or do they use a redshirt year for him? What does the rotation look like? How do guys play together? Like, who gets paired up in the front court? If they only go one big, who is that big? Very curious as to how the front court rotation is going to shake out. And also, how do they look defensively? Because this is a very long and athletic team, probably the most long and athletic team that Tang's had. It looks a lot more physically like the Baylor teams under Scott Drew that he was an assistant on. And those teams could defend you every which way.
Yep.
They could play man-to-man, they could trap, they could zone, they could throw a lot of different things at you. There were some players for K-State earlier this and at Big 12 Media Day that were talking about, hey, we might throw some zone at some teams this year. That might be something that we find to be really effective for us. So I am curious about those things from the K-State perspective tonight. You will be Mike's side and courtside as KU and Washburn play tonight. You can hear that one on our sister station, the home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9, with pregame coverage at 6:45, the tip-off from Allen Fieldhouse at 7. Brendan, give me what you're interested in from both sides of this matchup tonight.
All right, we'll start with KU, and we've already seen Kansas on the floor, not even close to a whole and finished product, but we have seen at least a little glimpse of it. So, number one, can somebody do any sort of reliable scoring so that it all does not fall on DeJuan Harris? DeJuan Harris is at his best. I know people like to see him attack more, but he is absolutely at his best as a holistic player when he does not have to do everything, so he can put more energy in on the defensive end, where he is the former Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year from 2 seasons ago. So that's number one. Who can help out there? That might be Rylan Griffin, who we did not see in the first game. He's coming back from injury. We do expect to see him tonight. What is he able to do? Bill Self said yesterday, Rylan Griffin's the kind of player who can get you 3 points even if you run crap offense, which KU needs badly. Did not have anything like that a year ago. Can he be that guy? What is he going to look like with a hand in his face? Open looks. Can he knock down those shots from 3? What else can he do other than just spotting up, catch and shoot? I want to see that with Rylan Griffin in his first game in Crimson and Blue. Additionally, how's the transition game going to look? Because Self was not happy with how that transpired against Arkansas. Again, I understand different kinds of competition, Arkansas and Washburn, but cleaning things up, getting your part of it right, passing to the right guy, being in the right position. Those are things KU can control. Would like to see them improve from last Friday's game to that game tonight. Real quick, as for Washburn, 2 things to note for you. What is the year 2 jump going to look like for Jack Batchelor, to peak his own, as well as Braden Shorter, both of whom were awesome as freshmen? Jack was 16th in the country in assist to turnover ratio last year as a true freshman who thought he might redshirt. That's how good he was. Braden Shorter was awesome off the bench. What does the year 2 jump look like for them? Additionally, newcomers, Cade Cook, Dylan Clausen, 2 freshmen, 6'7", 6'8". Expect them to have a big role right away. Same with Jacob Hanna, who was the Defensive Player of the Year in the GLVC this past year. Wichita kid transferring in from Illinois Springfield.
Laramie in the YouTube live chat mentioned David Castillo, and I am interested to double back to K-State real quick. I think he's going to be the backup 1 this year. I think Coach Tang loves him, and I think he's going to play a lot.
I think you will too.
I think you're going to see plenty of him tonight as well. Again, K-State, 7 o'clock here, 580 WIBW. KU Washburn, the Washburn broadcast on Country 106.9, 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock tip. We're back after this to wrap up the 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. Quick round of Random Question Tuesday before we wrap up this 3 o'clock hour. Big night for my guy, Russell Wilson, last night. He played exceptionally well, and the Steelers improved to 6-2 with a win over the Giants. I'll always ride for Russell Wilson because of what he meant to the Seahawks and by extension, what he meant to me as a fan of that team. What's one athlete you will always ride for no matter what uniform he wears or rode for well past their expiration date as a great player?
You're going to make me say it.
Sure.
Chris Bryant. He had everything, man. He had the look. He had the glove. Well, not the best glove, but a good enough glove. He had the power. He could hit for contact. He was a good base runner. He could play 5 positions. He had it all. And then all of his bones broke all at the same time. And now he has absolutely no confidence, but he is rich and he is handsome still.
Would his team like him back? Would the Cubs like him back?
I've seen worse Cubs since he left. Yeah, I'll always ride for KB.
You got a random question?
Yes, I do have a random question for you. Also related to quarterbacks. Who is your favorite backup quarterback from your own team during your lifetime?
Ooh, my favorite backup quarterback for my own team.
He's not my answer, but Malik Willis is rapidly climbing up the ranks. What the hell? He's so good.
You know, any Chiefs fan who wanted to win on a technicality could say, hey, Patrick Mahomes was a backup for a season.
I would boo you without your answer.
You know, I got 2 answers to this. Charlie Whitehurst, because he came in relief of Matt Hasselbeck and beat the Rams on Sunday Night Football and won the division that year. They went 7-9 and set the stage for the Beastquake run. There would be no that if not for Charlie Whitehurst. And Tavares Jackson, the late Tavares Jackson.
Yeah,
who,
oh my gosh. The coin flip king.
Yes.
What was it, like 9 in a row at one point? It was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was a great backup QB.
Matt Flynn is the answer for me. Love Flynn's sanity.
We've got one in advance in the YouTube chat says Elvis Gerbach. And Triple G Grimm says Rich Gannon. Chad Henne.
Chad Henne's a pretty good
Henne's
one.
a great answer for the Chiefs of recent vintage. Joe in the YouTube comments says Jason Bean, another
Hell
awesome
yeah, Joe.
answer.
Let's go.
We're talking Big 12 football to start the 4 o'clock hour. 580 Sports Talk next. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday afternoon. There are two of us in studio today. Dan Lucero and Brendan Dworzinski hanging out with you. Spencer Dupuy's off today. He'll be back tomorrow. Brendan Dworzinski will be off in a little bit. Heading out to Allen Fieldhouse. He'll be courtside, Mike's side, for the Washburn Ichabods openers. They take on number 1 Kansas in exhibition play.
Super excited about this. We've just found out earlier this afternoon that Washburn, the number 10 ranked team in the country in the preseason NABC top 25 coaches poll, deserved. This Washburn team is going to be sick. I'm telling you that right now. This team is going to be really freaking good this year. So very excited about this coming up tonight. Good test, obviously, for Washburn. Fun test for KU, too. But Brett Ballard said that earlier this week, and he told me this for our pregame interview for tonight, said that, hey, look, we understand what this game means, who this game is for, what this game is for. We hope that we can put together an impressive outing and, help KU get better and help ourselves get better. I hope you like Washburn sports because there are a whole lot of Ichabods games coming up over the next week. We got the men tonight against KU. Tomorrow night, the Washburn women are going to take the floor for the first time this year. New look roster, 3 players graduated, 5 new freshmen joining the team this year, plus a couple of transfers. They're going to take on K-State at Bramlage Coliseum tomorrow night.
That's right.
And then the Washburn women will be at Allen Fieldhouse on Friday this week. And then a Washburn football back in action against Kearney on Saturday. Plus the coaches show on Thursday night. Washburn 5 nights in a row over on Country 106.9.
That is your home for Ichabod Athletics. That is your voice of Ichabod Athletics. He'll be at Allen Fieldhouse, so he'll depart us a little bit earlier. I'll have the 5 o'clock hour with a solo today, so I hope you enjoy me for a solo hour, 580 Sports Talk. But it's the two of us this hour. We've got Big 12 football to discuss. I have a thought about the relative quality of the Big 12, and it's not a kind one. We've also got What Is Wrong With You. It's our final What Is Wrong With You matchup of October. We're going to crown a short week champion and get into our semifinals tomorrow and then crown an October champion. Man, I was compiling the previous weekly winners. This was a great month for What Is Wrong With You. Remember Rashi Rice's mom?
Hell yeah, I do. Man, that feels like forever ago.
Yeah, she'll be, we're going to bring Rashi Rice's mom back to What Is Wrong With You tomorrow. So we got some What Is Wrong With You, and we've got Jayhawk Weekly with Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. We'll get his incisive analysis on all things KU going into the start of, not really the start of their season, but an exhibition home game tonight, first home game. They did play Arkansas, of course, on Saturday. We'll get some thoughts on that and some expectations for tonight against Washburn, and we'll talk some KU football as well after the loss in the Sunflower Showdown, heading into their final bye week of the season this week. That's all still to come, plus your interaction with the program. We welcome in your text on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. One texter fired up about the Ichabods tonight. He says, woo, money line. Washburn money line.
Oh, hey, listen. Braden Shorter gets hot from 3. Watch out. Washburn's Vinnie Johnson. Washburn's the microwave comparison right there. No, it'll be fun.
That's a good reference.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You were not alive for the microwave, Vinnie Johnson. I was barely alive.
No, I was, in fact, very much not alive for that. I'm pretty sure I picked this one up from Bill Self at one point. He loves to call people Vinnie Johnson the microwave.
It's a great nickname.
Yeah. So he's playing a lot of games late in his career. 3 straight years from 32 to 34. He played all 82 games. Yeah, I would not be born for 2.5 years after he retired.
Yeah, he was on the Bad Boy Pistons.
Yeah, he was.
So, great reference. Text line, Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. You can also interact with us if you are watching on our YouTube live stream. We are on YouTube. The channel is 580 Sports Talk. You can also watch us on Facebook, WIBW News. Quick aside, thank you to those of you who have been watching the program either live or going back in and watching the archive after we sign off on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. We're seeing the numbers go up, and we appreciate you tuning in, giving the YouTube a try, hanging out with us, maybe telling other people that they need to be watching the YouTube and enjoying the show that way. Because we are coming off some of our most viewed live shows in the now 3 years that we've done this. 2 years.
2.
It'll be 2 on Halloween. 2 full years.
Yeah, 2 full years on Thursday.
So, we're coming up on 2 full years of doing this, and we're doing some of our best YouTube numbers, and we appreciate that a great deal. So, a special thank you from us to you for checking us out.
It's pretty fun. I think it was, from a business perspective, not to get too inside baseball here, but I think it was a great decision by us to start doing this. Very grassroots approach by us. I think the video is fun. You get to see the physical reactions to things, and occasionally you get to see equipment fall on Spencer.
Yes, this is true. Every now and again, a camera
about once a month
or a microphone will try and dismember Spencer Dupuis. He's not here today. We can make some. Appreciate you checking out the video. And if you haven't before, what better day than today to float on over to YouTube on your phone, your tablet, or on your PC or Mac, and search 580 Sports Talk and watch us.
Can also watch if you have a Linux machine.
Is that right?
I assume.
I've
never used it. I still don't know that I 100% know what it is.
Yeah, I'm not.
But I'm pretty sure you can.
You can watch. You watch it on your TV. You got the app on your Roku or your Fire Stick. Put us up on your 72-inch TV. Look at our glistening foreheads in 8K.
Yeah, to get a look at these forearms, 8K, high def.
Yeah, you got tickets to the gun show today. We both got the forearms out today. Anyhow,
I always have mine out. This shirt also, I did not do this intentionally. Sleeves only go about 6 more inches out. So I have to pull them up. Otherwise, it looks like I'm wearing a baseball sleeve quarter zip.
That's what I'm wondering. Is one of those old baseball shirts?
So, like, the
what
body
happened
fits
there?
Because I'm tall and skinny.
You are.
So it's hard to find clothes that fit because if you get, an XL, it's too boxy, but I need the length. So I saw this. I went to a local store. I won't tell you who it is, but there were some jocks there and they had a niche. And I held it up. I was like, oh, yeah, body length. Perfect. Size. Awesome. Put it on the first time calling a game. Bro, what the hell is this? I did not investigate enough. So, yeah, they get pulled up. We get forearm action when I wear this one.
Baseball style tee mixed with the quarter zip. Man, you're living in like 3024 fashion wise. The streets aren't ready for that yet.
No, they're really not. Neither am I, to be honest with you.
So yet another great reason to check out the video and see Brendan's awkwardly proportioned quarter zip here today on 580 Sports Talk. I wanted to get to this yesterday. We didn't get a chance. I want to get into it today. We are now 4 games from the conclusion of the college football season. I guess,
good Lord.
I guess 5 games / 6 weeks. My apologies.
Jeez,
some teams only have 4 games to play. Other teams like Iowa State have 5 games to play. So yeah, we're getting close. We're on the back 9, if you will, of this college football season. And the Big 12 has been as unpredictable as we expected. That was one of the main selling points for the Big 12 this year going in. We have no idea what to expect in this league. We think we know who's good, but there are a lot of teams that are lurking, that could surprise, that have a level of talent that are going to give them a chance to be competitive. We felt like we had at least a handle on who could do that and who was going to be sorry. Well, turns out we didn't. When you look at the standings, when you look at the fact that 5 Big 12 teams were ranked in the preseason top 25, and only one of those teams is ranked right now. And that, of course, would be Kansas State. They're the only team ranked right now that was ranked when the season began. They were ranked 18th. They're currently 17th in the AP poll. KU was ranked 22nd. Oklahoma State was ranked 17th. Arizona was ranked 21st. Utah was ranked 12th. Not only are all of those teams unranked, none of them are going to be ranked again this season, and they may all miss bowls. Kansas, extremely likely to miss a bowl. Oklahoma State, 3-5, probably going to miss a bowl. Arizona, 3-5, they don't look like they're going to make a bowl. Utah, 4-4, but they are a mess and may miss a bowl. They
falling apart.
They may not get to 6-6, and I don't know that Kyle Whittingham is going to be there after this year.
Really?
Look, they've got a coach in waiting, right? It's not so much I think Utah's going to move on. It might be a mutual parting of the ways. It might be Kyle Whittingham deciding, man, I don't know if I can keep on doing this. Because he's done it for a long time, and he's done it at a very high level. There's been more than idle speculation about that. So anyway, that's where the Big 12 stands. The teams we thought were going to be good, by and large, have not been. Meanwhile, BYU, who we all wrote off, is a top 10 team in the country and undefeated. Cincinnati's got 3 Big 12 wins. I wasn't sure they get 3 total wins. Baylor has all of a sudden looked like they could potentially turn their season around. Arizona State has more wins than I thought they would have at any point this season. Colorado is already bowl eligible. So there's a lot that has been unpredictable about the Big 12 this year. I'm here to tell you that that's not good. And the reason it's not good is because what we have ended up with in the Big 12 this season are 4 teams that week to week you can trust to play well and win games. And half of those teams, 2 of those 4, Colorado and BYU, I am still not entirely sure how good they actually are. Like, I will concede that Iowa State, who's done this before, at the very least in this league, is good. They're 7-0. They're 4-0 in the conference. They've got the best. There's a number simple rating system that College Football Reference uses, and Iowa State is tops in the league in that particular metric. Like, they're good. I got my qualms about Rocco Beck, but they play really good defense. They are generally mistake-free. They have the best scoring defense in the Big 12. That's a good football team. Kansas State, I feel like I can say the same thing. That's a good, solid football team, good on both sides of the ball. They've got some really good wins. BYU and Colorado, I just don't know. And that's probably unfair. That's probably preconceived biases that I have not yet eliminated when it comes to what I thought BYU was going to be and what I thought Colorado was going to be. But again, objectively, you look at their record, you look what they've done in league play. Those are good Big 12 teams. Those are top 25 teams in the country right now, and the metrics back that up. Who else do you trust in this league? Who else do you, on a week-to-week basis, watch in the Big 12 and think, I know what I'm getting from that team this week? Because my list is a null set, brother. I don't trust any of these other teams.
Well, what's the question? Do you trust them or do you know what you're going to get? I know what I'm going to get when I watch KU. I'm going to get heartburn.
That's fair.
I see what you're saying. I guess if you're looking at the full list of teams, I got to pull them up and visualize them here. No, I mean, I think you've got a good question because off the top of my head, I can't tell you, I know that for certain you're going to get this from someone, you're going to get that from someone, not in terms of like success. Like, I know what I'm going to get from TCU. I'm going to get a high scoring game. I'm going to get Josh Hoover throwing the ball all over the place with reckless abandon, probably a decent number of yards and probably zero defense at all. I mean, I know what I'm getting there, but I don't know that I'm getting a good team. I think the easier way to phrase it, at least for my tiny little brain, is like, how many of these teams are consistent?
Yes, that's a better way to put it. And the answer to that is zero. There is no consistency with this team, with these teams.
I mean, outside of I'll toss Cincinnati in that top 5 group because they have been really good and we talked about them. But even them, I mean, Cincinnati, I don't think they're well coached. And Brendan Sorsby's really good. He's had a great year.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, they were not all that competitive with Colorado this past weekend. And that was a team that, if you really want to prove yourself, you've got to be able to compete with a team like that. But you just go down the list. TCU, do you know what you're getting week in, week out? In terms of win-loss success, no, not really. Texas Tech, no, absolutely not. I might trust them as little as I trust anyone in the entire league.
No joke.
West Virginia, that's certainly the case. Arizona State's different, I think, because they're such an out-of-character, fun story this year. But, yeah, I mean, they're in the middle of the conference standings, and no one believes they're going to go win anything. And, I mean, no one feels that about them.
That's the other part of this, too. The other component of this is that we have the 4 teams in this league right now who stand BYU and Iowa State undefeated, and Colorado and Kansas State at 4-1. Do you think any team in this league has the juice to make a run and be a factor in getting to Arlington? Do you think Cincinnati, TCU, Texas Tech, and West Virginia or Arizona State can feasibly run the rack in this league? No, they don't. Not at all. It's not those kinds of teams. And what would have benefited the Big 12 in this first year of the college football playoff would have been to be predictable, in the sense that the teams at the top of the league are familiar. The teams at the top of the league are who we expect to be at the top of the league. And they are playing high-level football to the extent where we're going to have more than just one team in this league in our 12-team playoff. I do not believe right now that looks like it's going to be the case for the Big 12, because here is the problem. Who are the marquee conference wins? That might be another way to look at it. What wins do you look at in this league and say, that's a really good win? Used to be, we thought beating Oklahoma State would be a good win. It's not.
It's not.
Is beating Utah a good win? No. Is beating Kansas at this point a good win? Not particularly. No. That's not helping your resume.
Got K-State bumped in the AP poll.
BYU's best win is Kansas State.
Yep.
Kansas State's best win is Colorado.
Yep.
Colorado had a chance at a marquee conference win against K-State, and they didn't get it. The rest of their conference games are against Tech, Utah, KU, and Oklahoma State. They're out of chances. They don't have a chance for another marquee win. Iowa State, what is their best conference win right now? Their conference wins are over Houston, Baylor, West Virginia, and UCF.
WVU. Pretty easily, and you know what I think about that program.
And they were, that was on the road, but yeah, you're probably right. The rest of their games are Tech, KU, Cincinnati, Utah, and Kansas State. Farmageddon at the end. That is the last Big 12 game that matters this year. That the rest of the league schedule, essentially, right now, as it stands with 5 games, 5 weeks left in the regular season, the only game in the Big 12 that is must see, this game matters, is Iowa State, Kansas State. And I don't think that's good for the perception of the league, because what happens then is that your schedule is a little bit out of sight, out of mind, right? Like, even Colorado football's not doing the TV ratings it did in Coach Prime's first year. If you don't have games that matter, you're out of sight, out of mind. And that goes for the college football playoff discussion. And unfortunately, this brings me no joy to say, but that's where the Big 12 is right now, where their games, by and large, like Kansas State, they go to Houston this Saturday. They are heavily favored. They should win that game. They've got Arizona State and Cincinnati back-to-back at home after the bye. Those should be wins. Then they've got Farmageddon. Like, they're going to coast. And it's hard to see Iowa State not similarly coasting unless there is a significant course correction from Utah that does not feel like it is coming. And that's bad for the league. That's bad for the perception of the league. And it's bad luck, frankly, that we ended up with 4 good teams in the league and none of them really play each other. Like, we didn't get Colorado BYU. We don't get BYU Iowa State. The only team to play the other contenders, K-State. And they played all of them, or going to play all of them, on the road.
Yeah. I mean, and that plays into why we collectively, and our pal Paul Meyerberg, who we'll talk to on Thursday too, all think K-State is still the best team in this conference. So let me ask you this question then. How does the math work to get 2 teams into the playoff?
This is the scenario in which I could theoretically see 2 teams make the playoff in the Big 12. I do not think, even if it's unbeaten BYU and unbeaten Iowa State in the conference championship game, that both of those teams would get in. I don't think a 12-1 BYU is getting in the college football playoff, unless they are really convincing in their next 4 wins and continue to stay, solidly entrenched in the top 10. I don't know that I see it. I feel like that's a team that will be very easy to elevate a 2 or even a 3-loss SEC team above. Again, I'm not saying that with any joy or any mirth. I just think that's what the perception is of BYU. So that would be the maybe for me. Here's the other thing, though. What if K-State goes 10-2 and their only losses are at 12-0 BYU and at 12-0 Iowa State? And if they have wins against a 10-2 Colorado, which is possible, and a 10-2 Tulane, who maybe wins the AAC, and if that's K-State's resume at 10-2, I think they could get serious at-large consideration.
I think if that's the way
that they don't make the conference championship game, I think that you would look at that resume and say, well, dang, they lost to 2 unbeaten teams on the road in their league, and they've got good road wins against other playoff contenders. That feels more like a playoff team than I think like a 12-1 BYU would feel like.
So right now, if that's how this season ended, you can get a room the week of the Alamo Bowl at the Intercontinental San Antonio for $170 a night. No chance. No, I don't think it's. I think the only way the Big 12 possibly gets 2 teams in is that K-State runs the table and then wins the conference championship and beats Iowa State or beats an previously undefeated Iowa State or BYU in the title game. I think that's the only way it happens. You get 12-1 BYU or Iowa State and 12-1 conference champion K-State. I think that's the only way it works.
But if K-State runs the table and beats, which would include a win over Iowa State, then K-State would be ahead of Iowa State in standings. It would be K-State BYU.
So so that's how it would have to work.
Even if BYU ended up with a loss, that's how it would end up.
Yes. So to get 2 in the playoff, what would have to happen is BYU runs the rack, K-State runs the rack, and then K-State beats BYU in the Big 12 championship game. I think that's the only way the math works out, because I think you're right. I think it's out of sight, out of mind. Like, one loss, Iowa State missed the conference title game. We'd rather have 11-1 Indiana. We'd rather have 2-loss Alabama. That's how this is going to be shaken out, I think. But if you end up with BYU, I mean, they'll get the 11 seed, but they won every regular season game and didn't lose to their conference championship game. K-State won the conference. They're obviously in at that point. I think that's the only way that the committee makes it work at that point, because I don't think the rest of the league is going to get any sort of benefit of the doubt otherwise.
Here's a theoretical for you. A 2-loss K-State or a 2-loss Notre Dame. Who do they put in?
That's a good question.
Notre Dame might have some better wins. Like, they beat Texas A&M. That win is aging very well. They also have a loss to Northern Illinois, who last week lost to Ball State.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I don't even know that they will have a better win. In fact, beating Texas A&M is good. That is a good win. That was also week 1. Their next best win is
Navy.
Louisville. They're the remaining games. No, Florida State, Virginia, Army, USC. One of those is a true road game, and it's at USC, which has been a major disappointment. Yeah. If Notre Dame loses to one of those teams, I think they're out.
I think you're probably right.
Because all of those are worse than any potential K-State loss.
With the other loss having been to a 4-4 Northern Illinois team.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be one thing if Northern Illinois were 7-1 and going to win the MAC. They're absolutely not that. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand. Like, this was not a great year for the Big 12 to have unfolded the way it did, because they are out of sight, out of mind in the national discussion. And that means they probably don't end up with more than one team in the playoff. And I think that there will be a lot of pounding on the table from here for a 2-loss K-State team if it were to come to that. But I don't know that you're going to get that level of table pounding in the committee room for a 2-loss K-State team, even if those 2 losses are literally on the road to undefeated teams in the conference, which they would have that would give them the best resume of any 10-2 team in the country. But I don't know if that would matter. Like, I really don't. I want it to, but I don't think it would. Much cleaner way for K-State to do it, just win all the rest of your games. And then you don't have to worry about it because you're in anyway. We'll take a break, come back, play a little What Is Wrong With You. Michael Swain's going to join us as well. This is 580 Sports Talk. It's our final competition day of October before the semifinals tomorrow, and a monthly champion is crowned on Thursday on What Is Wrong With You. Yesterday's champion surviving to today, trying to be a short week winner, the Penis Picasso. The folks at the tattoo parlor in Colorado Springs, Colorado, who didn't like the parking garage that their new neighbors built, the new neighbors being an apartment complex. So they drew a bunch of members on it.
Yeah, the apartment complex was calling the cops and said, hey, these people can't be parked out front here by this tattoo shop. Tow them away. And said, hey, you can't do that to our customers. Here, have some... I don't know what euphemisms I can say. So you know what I mean.
Yeah, sometimes it's best to be direct. I mean, people, penis.
Yeah.
That's what they were.
Yeah.
Penises.
Biological term.
Yes. All over the medical term. All over the top of that parking garage. Two new stories today. I'm going to go first. We're going to Florida.
Of course.
Davenport, Florida. Polk County woman's hankering for late night snack ended with her allegedly ducking for cover as an Uber Eats driver spit in her face and stole her fall yard decor.
What?
After she confronted the woman about taking some of her food. Last month, a woman with a very long name, Alexandra Del Valle Acosta Aguilar, went to a Davenport home shortly before midnight to make a delivery. According to the arrest report, a woman inside the home says she went outside and confronted Del Valle Acosta Aguilar after seeing the delivery woman take some of her food from the bag she ordered. That's a foul, man. Can't do that. If you're gonna drive Uber Eats, order yourself something if you want to eat. Don't take from the clientele. When both women were under the overhang above the entrance to the front door of the home, the victim says she saw Del Valle Acosta Aguilar holding her $10 Happy Fall Y'all sign. When the victim grabbed the sign back, she said the pair began arguing and Del Valle Acosta Aguilar spit in her face. The victim said she covered herself with the sign and moved to the furthest point from the suspect before being stopped by the closed front door. Del Valle Acosta Aguilar then allegedly took a decorative urn from the victim's yard and walked back to her car. After the woman left, the victim said she was missing 4 decorative plaster pumpkins worth about $75 each.
They're nice pumpkins.
She was arrested based on the victim's statements. The suspect's statement and records from Uber Eats was charged with burglary with assault and grand theft from a dwelling.
The fake pumpkins ain't worth it, lady. Just certainly not worth that.
Absolutely not.
All right, my story today also takes us to Florida. Dan, you're never going to believe this. We have another machete incident.
Oh, wow.
A Palm Coast man was arrested after deputies say he threatened workers with a stormwater inspection company with a machete for blocking the road. This happened last Wednesday in Flagler County, where the sheriff's office responded to the intersection of Belterre Parkway and Kaywood Place. The employees told officials that 43-year-old Miguel Rodriguez was upset because they were blocking the road while backing up one of their vehicles without any signs posted. But deputies say they noticed several signs claiming there were workers in the area. According to the workers, Rodriguez drove around the work site, stopped his truck, got out, and yelled, quote, "I'm going to chop some bees up," while walking toward them with a machete. That quote, by the way, is hilarious.
Yes, it is.
One of the workers told officials he feared for his life and ran into the woods nearby. The employees then said Rodriguez got back into his truck and sped off as traffic began to back up on the road. He was found nearly 3 miles away, where he admitted to having several machetes in his truck, including one on the dashboard. Rodriguez claimed he had been stopped by some guys and he were upset there weren't any signs posted. He then got out of his truck and began arguing with them. The sheriff said, quote, "This man threatened several workers with a machete because he was inconvenienced." He's facing a charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon.
Yeah, I bet. Multiple machetes? You don't need multiple machetes.
You don't need one.
Yeah, you really probably don't need one, like, out of the house.
In Palm Coast, Florida, there is no need for this.
Like, you got your house machete, that's fine. I don't think you need your walking around or your driving around machete. Who wins today?
You can't spit in the woman's face. That's vile.
Yeah, the Uber Eats spitter. Does that beat the Penis Picasso?
No.
Yeah, we're gonna get to say penis on at least one more episode of 580 Sports Talk. We're gonna take a break. Come back. Michael Swain joins us next. We are joined in the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by Michael Swain, KU beat writer for Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. It's Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every Tuesday at this time. You can follow Michael on Twitter at mswain247. Subscribe to Fog.net, become a VIP, and get all of Michael's outstanding insight. Michael, we'll get to basketball in a bit. In fact, we might just let Brendan get a basketball question in to start things off. He's got to get out to Allen Fieldhouse. So, Brendan, why don't you open with a hoops question here with this discussion?
Well, as much as I would love to start by talking all things Ichabods, Michael, I wanted to ask you about Rylan Griffin, who we didn't get to see in the first scrimmage for KU against Arkansas on Friday. Expect him to go tonight. That's what Bill Self said yesterday. How much can we expect to see out of him in terms of production here in his first game with KU?
Yeah, I think for him, it's going to be like getting his sea legs under him a little bit. First game of the season, and a lot of those guys were able to get some of that against Arkansas, and I think you could see some of the rust coming off for some of those guys. Because look, playing in a real game is different than playing practice. It's a controlled setting in practice, and this really is. Look, it's not going to be the same level of play as Arkansas, but it's still going to be a full-blown game. And so I think for Rylan, it's going to be about obviously getting comfortable playing in Allen Fieldhouse, playing in this setting. And then I think for, if you want to spread this out to the season, right, I think his role off the bench most likely is going to be someone that can provide some floor spacing. I think he's going to be really, really critical in what he offers there, because you look at the starting lineup right now and, KJ Adams, not a proven shooter. DeJuan Harris, has, I think, progressed, but is not necessarily someone that you're expecting to go out there and really be an elite floor spacer. So when KU does go to its bench, right, you're going to have someone like Rylan that can come off and knock down some three-point shots, especially off catch-and-shoot situations. And then, something he's talked about is he really wants to get better defensively, and I think that's probably going to be the thing that determines how much he plays this season, right? How good of a defender can you be for this team? If he develops into someone that can be a great perimeter defender, guarding twos and threes, that's going to really help his minutes. If he is really just kind of a pure scorer, then his role will still be impactful, but maybe not as expansive as it could be.
Ray Keys-Passmore had a good showing in the scrimmage against Arkansas. There weren't many KU players who did, frankly, as that game was kind of one-sided in the end at Bud Walton Arena. But Passmore showed well as a freshman, and Bill Self was complimentary after the game. Is he a guy who can maybe force his way into more minutes if he has another good showing tonight?
I think so, and I think for him it's going to be a lot more about what he does in limited opportunities against a team like North Carolina, because that's that team KU's going to be playing against, right, when conference play comes around. So I think Rakis has the chance to really be an energy guy off the bench, a spark plug. Look, I think if you look at the last few years, KU's really missed a guy off the bench that can really bring good energy, because I think it's been other freshmen that maybe haven't had that be a calling card of their general game. And I think he's got a chance to have a solid role on this year's team, because what he showed against Arkansas is what he needs to bring every single night. Energy on the glass, a fearless mindset where even though he's a freshman, he's not afraid to attack the basket. He's not afraid to take guys off the dribble. And I think you have to kind of have some of that confidence to be a guy that comes off the bench, because you're only going to get so many minutes. So you've got to go out there with a good mindset and attack and just go and go and go. And I think that's what Rakis showed against Arkansas. I think that's what he's got to continue to show when he gets chances off the bench.
Speaking of the freshman, Flory Badunga obviously got to play quite a bit because Hunter Dickinson did not go against Arkansas. And we're going to see plenty of Flory tonight as well, as Dickinson will sit out the scrimmage against Washburn. Obviously, there's a ton of potential there. How quickly can they get that from potential to some realized potential? Because it looked very raw at times against the Razorbacks.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see anything really realized in the year of 2024. This is all about Flory really getting an understanding of what his role, not necessarily what his role is, but where he needs to be on the floor at all times. You could see against Arkansas some times when you could see the gears turning in Flory's head, right? He's thinking, he's on the perimeter. He's like, okay, where do I need to be right now? And it's not necessarily super instinctual. That will come with time, and as Bill Self and the coaching staff really work with him on the spots he needs to be on the floor. I think for right now, for him, it's very much like Rakis. You got to go out there, give 110% effort, run up and down the floor, be a guy that can be a lob threat off screens on the pick and roll, use your athleticism, protect the paint with some of your natural shot blocking ability, and really just do that. And don't worry about being a post presence. Don't worry about being someone that's got to go out there and make a ton of plays. Just fit in, play your role. And if he does that, he's going to have success this year because for him, he's got all the natural traits and talents. He's just someone that's got to learn how to kind of play basketball in KU's system. And that, as we've seen over time, is really hard for freshman big men to do. It takes time. And so I think that's something that's going to happen with Flory, where over the next couple months and years, plural, right, he's going to develop, and I think he's going to have the potential to be an impactful player for KU. But I think for this year in particular, it's just going to be about, can you bring energy? Can you really just play some sound basketball as much as you can?
We're joined by Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. This is Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. Michael joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline every Tuesday at this time to talk all things Jayhawks. You can follow him on Twitter at mswain247. Let's pivot from basketball to football. And KU's lost 29-27 to K-State in the Sunflower Showdown on Saturday in Manhattan. Kind of the history, the last 16-year history of that rivalry writ small, and kind of 2024 writ small too, is that KU found a way to lose a game that could have been winnable for them and made mistakes in the game that weren't just mistakes. They were head scratching. How do you end up making that play mistakes? Jameel Croft fielding a kickoff like he's trying to toe tap a touchdown and costing KU field position. Jalen Daniels diving for yardage instead of sliding when he's got the lead, and protecting the ball is much more important than the extra yard, and costing KU ultimately possession and the lead. It just felt like everything we've seen about this Kansas team throughout the year and throughout the last 16 years of these games, we saw it again on Saturday. I don't know that there's much more to it than that.
Yeah. No, there really isn't. And I think, if you've watched KU this season, it's been a very common theme where in crunch time, there are situations where guys are trying so hard to make a big play. And I just go back and think about the UNLV game when, late in that game, KU's offense is trying to get going, but they keep getting penalties because guys along the offensive line are trying to make the block that springs Devin Neal free or that makes a play happen. And I think you saw that against K-State. Look, the Jameel Croft thing is pretty hard to explain because there are so many ways you can field the kickoff in that situation. And he just picked the worst way to do it. And it's hard to explain that away. But, Leipold said postgame is a guy that was trying to make a play. And again, that falls in line with what you've seen over the course of the year. And it goes back to Jalen Daniels too, right? KU's facing after a penalty, right? A second and long. He's trying to go and get KU a first down that really, I think, would have iced the game at that point because KU would have had momentum, fresh set of downs, and you're talking about timeouts starting to come off the board. Now, does that mean KU's guaranteed to win it in that situation? No, but man, KU would be in a fantastic spot there. But Daniels fumbles and K-State recovers, and there's even another play there where there's an almost interception where KU defensive tackle DJ Withers is like falling down as the ball comes to him and almost intercepts Avery Johnson. That would have also iced the game. So there's so many moments throughout this game that you have to get if you're going to beat K-State. And those are the types of moments KU has not gotten over the last 16 years. And that continued on Saturday. And I think for KU coming out of the bye week, if they're going to win some of these big games against ranked teams, they've got to come through with some of those big time moments with 10 or less minutes to play in the fourth quarter, because I think there's just a few games this year where that has been the case, and KU has needed those plays and just hasn't been able to execute it.
Had KU won that game, and again, with 3.5 minutes left, they have the ball and the lead, and they are a first down or two from winning that game. Obviously, headline number one is the losing streak is snapped, and headline number two is still a chance to make a bowl game with this team. But what would have been the takeaway from a positive perspective from that game? Because I felt like you looked at the way KU played, there were a lot of things that they did really well in that game for the better part of 60 minutes, and were maybe even better than K-State after the better part of that game.
Well, my headline probably would have been finally, and not about the streak. Honestly, it would have been finally this team puts it all together, because that's been the thing that's been missing this year. You can go throughout games And KU just has not put together a complete performance. And look, if Jones Daniels doesn't fumble there and KU goes and ices the game, like there's still things you can look at and say, man, that was not good. Like Jameel Croft's play we talked about. But I would say finally, because this team that has so much talent and has been in all these games and has had the opportunity to win so many this year, has been able to, and they were finally able to. And I think that would have been a huge confidence boost going into the bye week and then coming out and playing Iowa State, going to play BYU on the road, and then playing Colorado at home. Like, that would have given KU a ton of confidence. Do I think KU would have gone on to like make a bowl game? I don't know. I don't know if one game can change your opinion on what you've seen the previous, at that point it would have been 6 weeks. So I think for KU, like, it would have been a major win for so many reasons. I don't know if it, quote unquote, saves the season, but I think for a lot of KU fans, getting that monkey off your back of the losing streak to K-State would have meant a lot. And I think for this team, it would have definitely been a huge confidence boost.
Got about a minute left, Michael. So one more question.
Yeah.
Does the focus on the bye week for KU have to be, we have to get Devin Neal more than 18 touches in a game?
Well, yes and no. I think a part of that maybe is the shoulder injury that he had. We weren't really able to get too much information on that after the game, but I think a part of that is the shoulder, but also look, KU has very much had Devin in around 20 touch range for most of the year. He has not been a guy that's been getting kind of your 25, 30 touches in a game like maybe you see some other top running backs have over the course of big-time games. So the answer is yes and no, right? Devin Neal is an incredible player, and KU needs to be able to lean on him. But also, you don't want to become one-dimensional. And I think KU's offense has done a good job this year of not being one-dimensional for most of the time. And I don't know if handing it off to a guy, 22 times and throwing the ball an extra 4 is going to make you super multiple and really make teams have to cover you across the field.
Michael Swain covers Kansas Jayhawks athletics for Fog.net, part of the 27 Sports Network. Be a subscriber, be a VIP if you aren't already. Get Michael's outstanding insights into all things Jayhawks and catch him here Tuesdays for Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. Michael, always a pleasure. Enjoy Allen Fieldhouse tonight. I'll see you there.
Awesome. Sounds great. See you.
That is Michael Swain. We're due for a break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk next. Wrapping up this second hour of 3 on this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero here and flying solo for the final hour of the program. Brendan Dworzinski's on his way to Allen Fieldhouse. He'll have the call tonight as Washburn takes on Kansas in exhibition play, the Ichabods and the Jayhawks tonight from Lawrence. Pre-game coverage beginning at 6:45 on our sister station, the home of Ichabod Athletics, Country 106.9, KTPK FM. Of course, right here on 580 WIBW tonight, you'll have K-State men's basketball, also an exhibition play against an MIAA foe as they welcome the Fort Hays State Tigers to Manhattan. So big night of basketball. We'll recap it all on tomorrow's show. But we got one more hour today. It's just you and I. So let's have some fun in the final hour of the program. We're going to do our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Talk about the ESPN article today from Jeremy Fowler that compared the Chiefs to the Patriots. Not the current ones, because that wouldn't be very nice, but like the dynastic ones. And the one big reason why I think the Chiefs operation works as well as it does. Plus, we'll do a little Ask Me Anything. So if you got questions for me, hit us in the YouTube comments or on the text line, 785-272-9429. And we'll do a little Ask Me Anything in the final hour, 580 Sports Talk, which is coming up next. Let's get it. Final hour of the day here on 580 Sports Talk. So glad you're with us here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9. Online, worldwide at 580WIBW.com. And, of course, on our live video stream, you can catch us on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. You can also watch us on Facebook, WIBW News. Hello, special hello to all of our video viewers. However you're listening to the program, audio, video, whichever, thanks for being with us. Appreciate you making us a part of your Tuesday afternoon. I am Dan Lucero, and it's just me. Everyone's left. One is the loneliest number, and so on and so forth. I am rocking it solo dolo for the final hour of the show today. Spencer Dupuis is off. He'll be back tomorrow. Brendan Dworzinski is headed to Lawrence. He is setting up for Washburn basketball tonight and their exhibition contest against the number one team in Division I, the Kansas Jayhawks. Pre-game coverage at 6:45, tip-off at 7. Again, you can hear that game on our sister station, the home of the Washburn Ichabods, Country 106.9. You can hear K-State men's basketball tonight here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9. We're going to be giving way to the K-State Sports Network right at 6 o'clock. So one more hour of the show, and then we'll toss it over to basketball tonight from Bramlage Coliseum, as K-State also plays an MIAA team in exhibition play. Fort Hays State coming to Bramlage Coliseum. Tip-off for that one, of course, is at 7 o'clock as well. Still to come in the final hour of the show today, we've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines, of course. I wanted to discuss the ESPN profile of the Chiefs organization that Jeremy Fowler wrote today. It is not entirely glowing, but largely very complimentary of how the Chiefs have built this modern dynasty, how they have become to the league what the Patriots were to the league for the better part of the last 2 decades. The Belichick, Brady, Kraft years, if you will. And the one reason why I think it works above any other reason, the one reason that organizationally this functions the way it does. No, not Patrick Mahomes, though that's certainly a big part of it. No, not Andy Reid, though he certainly is a big part of it. No, not Brett Veach, even though he is a big part of it as well. It is who I didn't mention and the reasons that I do not mention him. That is the reason I believe the Chiefs dynasty is what it is today, especially in contrast to some other organizations who are far from as successful. So I wanted to touch on that. We'll get to that a little bit later on. If you haven't read it yet, it's at ESPN.com today. Jeremy Fowler doing a really nice job with the piece, and I recommend everybody, Chiefs fan or otherwise, check it out. Also, since it's just me, we got one more hour, and it's, Random Question Tuesday is a thing we've done on the show for a very long time. We'll do an extended version of Random Question Tuesday and Ask Me Anything, however you want to term it. I'll take questions from the audience and get those answered later on in this hour. You can text the program, 785-272-9429. That is the Top City Metal Supply text line number, 785-272-9429. Or you can interact in the YouTube live chat. If you are watching along on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, drop some questions in the chat. Or if you're watching on Facebook, WIBW News, you can ask me some questions there. Get your questions in. Ask me anything you've wanted me to answer, anything you've wondered about your humble host. Or it could be a sports question. It could be anything. That's why it's called Ask Me Anything, not Ask Me Specific Things. Just consider it an extended version of Random Question Tuesday, if you'd like. We'll do some of that. We'll have a little fun as we wrap up the program today here on 580 Sports Talk. But we'll start with some headlines. We got a lot of them. Start in the National Football League. There was a big trade today. There was a big benching announced today. There was a season-ending injury today. Let's cover all of those bases as we begin our 580 Sports Talk headlines. The big trade. Wide receiver Deontay Johnson is a Baltimore Raven. He goes from the Carolina Panthers to the Ravens today for pocket lint. I cannot understand the compensation in this trade. The Ravens are essentially pick swapping with the Panthers, a 5th-round pick of Baltimore's going to Carolina in exchange for a 6th-round selection, and also Deontay Johnson, who was acquired by the Panthers from the Steelers before the season and has had a nice year. He did sit out on Sunday, didn't play when the Panthers lost to the Broncos, dealing with a rib injury that he had played through the week before. Deontay Johnson, so far this season, has put up the following numbers, again, with Bryce Young and the corpse of Andy Dalton throwing to him. So, remember that as we go along here. 30 receptions on the year for 357 yards. 3 touchdowns, averaging just under 12 yards per catch. At his speed, he is someone who is a threat to stretch the field further, and the Ravens already have a lot of those guys like Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. In his career, averaging 11.2 yards per reception in 85 career games, 421 career catches. Now, Johnson is a free agent at the end of this season. So this is a rental, strictly a rental by the Ravens. They're going to have him for their final 8 games, 9 games, however many it is for the Ravens. I still don't understand how, given the need for a wide receiver, not just for the Ravens, but for a lot of contenders out there, given the market, given that there were teams down wide receivers like Houston, which we'll get to in a second, like Tampa Bay, who's lost both of their top targets. A lot of teams out there who wanted a wide receiver. And the Panthers held probably the best trade chip of them all, because the Rams winning back-to-back games meant that they kind of backed off the idea that they were going to trade either Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua or even a guy like Demarcus Robinson. Like Deontay Johnson was the guy on the trade market. And it's a pick swap is all you get. And the level of pick swap, think of this. If the Ravens go to the AFC Championship game, entirely possible outcome for their season. If they're one of the final 4 teams standing, and they have one of the final 4 picks of the 5th round, and the Panthers wind up the pits, which looks, again, pretty likely, that they're going to end up picking in the top 5 of every round. Well, that means they pick in the top 5 of the 6th round, and that's a conservative estimate, as bad as that team is. So a bottom 4 5th round pick and a top 5 6th round pick. Now, there are compensatory picks that wind up spreading things out between the 5th and the 6th round. But essentially, the Panthers had the number 1 in-demand wide receiver on the trade market, and it moved them up 10 to 15 picks on day 3. That's it. That's all you got for this guy. It makes me wonder if the rib injury is a little more real than anyone is letting on. But, the player has to be healthy to get traded. Player has to be playable to get traded. You can't trade a guy who can't play. And he has to pass a physical and all of those things. I just don't understand. And then I remember that the Carolina Panthers are the Carolina Panthers, and that their owner is David Tepper, who is the worst owner in the NFL. And things make a little bit more sense. Just a little regarding that trade. So that's what the Panthers get. 10 to 15 picks higher on day 3, in the middle of day 3 of this coming NFL draft, in exchange for a guy who was in demand at the deadline. And what the Ravens get now is another field stretcher for Lamar Jackson, who's played great football this year. They're going to be asking less of Rashad Bateman, which is generally a good thing. He'll be wide receiver number 2 behind Zay Flowers. And all of a sudden, they go 3 deep at wide receiver with guys who can hurt you. They're already 2 deep at tight end. Mark Andrews is starting to come back to the land of the living. And Isaiah Likely can make plays. So all of a sudden, starting to look like a pretty menacing offense there in Baltimore, as they acquired Deontay Johnson today. Speaking of wide receivers, I mentioned Houston in the market for a wide receiver. Well, why would that be the case? Stephon Diggs is out for the season. He has a torn ACL, torn on a non-contact play on Sunday when Houston beat the Colts 23-20. It happened in the third quarter. Diggs was 7th in the NFL in receptions this year, was 2nd on the Texans in receiving yards. The Texans are already without Nico Collins. He's on IR. He's going to miss at least one more game with his hamstring injury. So they're down to Tank Dell and a bunch of dudes you've never heard of right now at wide receiver. Ultimately, they'll get Nico Collins back. That will help them a lot. But you've got Robert Woods, who's a million years old, Xavier Hutchinson, that sounds fake, that's not a real name, and John Mechie III, who's a great story, beat leukemia to resume his NFL career, but he's not a proven NFL wide receiver. That was the whole point of bringing Stephon Diggs to Houston in the first place. Give C.J. Stroud more weapons. Give him an embarrassment of riches at the wide receiver spot. And now they've lost that. I bet they would have given up more than a pick swap for Deontay Johnson. More than anything else, I wonder if teams look at that compensation for Johnson and think, God, we could have done that. We could have afforded that. I'm sure the Texans feel that way. You know who else I bet feels that way? Brett Veach. What's the there's a line from The Wire that I can't quote in its entirety because, like many quotes from the iconic HBO show The Wire, there's an F word in it. But the Senator, Clay Davis, has a line in the show where he says, I'll take any bleep's money if he's giving it away. I'll take anybody's money. I'll take anybody's wide receiver if he's giving them away. I'm sure that's how Brett Veach feels and other GMs in the league feel seeing that compensation for Deontay Johnson. One other NFL headline to get to today. The Indianapolis Colts are making a change at quarterback. They have benched Anthony Richardson, and they will start Joe Flacco moving forward. Flacco will get the nod starting on Sunday. Richardson benched after 10 career starts. Now, if you missed this on Sunday, Richardson came out of the game in the third quarter after a play, and he came back in later on, but they asked him after the game, hey, why did you come out of the game? And he said, I was tired. Essentially said he needed a break and then he was tired. Number one, you don't have to tell the media all that. You don't have to. Sometimes there is such a thing as being too honest. And I think that was the case for Anthony Richardson there. I think he was a little too honest when it comes to talking about why he came out of the game. You just should have said, yeah, something, I cramped up. I got tight in my quad, my neck, my neck, my back, my neck and my back. One of those. You don't have to tell people you asked out of a game because you were tired, because that's not the kind of thing that plays very well in an NFL locker room where guys are playing through being tired all the time. So my guess is that the benching is two-pronged here. Number one, I think Anthony Richardson has probably lost a little respect in that locker room. Ask out of a quarterback, asking out of the game because they're tired, that won't do. You can't do that. You can't have that. So that's one thing. And the other thing is the Colts are built to win. We saw last year that after Anthony Richardson went out as a rookie, Shane Steichen made it cook with Gardner Minshew to the point that they were a dropped pass away from making the playoffs last season. They're a drop fourth down pass away from probably making the postseason. So they've got that level of ability in Indianapolis. They are wired to win. They see a playoff spot there for the taking because the wild card field in the AFC is really stinky. And they think Joe Flacco can get them there. And they don't think, maybe, that Anthony Richardson can. And maybe they're not being as willing as they ought to be to let a guy whose whole thing when he was drafted is tools off the charts, but needs experience, needs to play, needs seasoning. Well, all of a sudden, they've decided that they're not that interested in that, at least for now. There is reporting that it's not a permanent benching. One team source talking to ESPN characterizing the benching as a growth opportunity, insisting that the Colts, quote, are not quitting on Anthony. That will be the story, but that is not the case. But look, man, he's only 10 starts into his career, and the physical tools are all still there. The flaws are also all still there. And if you draft a quarterback number 5 overall, you're either willing to work with that or you're not. And right now, The Colts aren't. And I can kind of understand it. Like, I don't necessarily think this is the wrong thing to do from the Colts perspective. It just doesn't make it look good that that's who you spent the number 5 pick on if you're going to arrest their development. Because you know what he needs? You know what a raw talent needs? Playing time. And you're cut him off at the knees, even if that might be the right thing to do in that locker room right now. It's the wrong thing to do by your investment. And that's a tough thing, honestly, for Shane Steichen to manage. I don't envy him one bit because I think you can argue he's making the right decision just as easily as you can argue he's making the wrong one. Those are NFL headlines today. Keeping it moving on our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Another coordinator in the Big 12 lost their job today. That's 3 in 2 weeks. Talking about how disappointing this year has been for a lot of teams that fancied themselves contenders in the Big 12. Utah, 4-4. They fired their OC 2 weeks ago. Andy Ludwig, he's gone. Earlier this week, UCF parted ways with their defensive coordinator, Ted Roof. Wow. I can't believe hiring Ted Roof in the year of our Lord 2024 didn't work. Unbelievable that didn't go the way Gus Malzahn thought it was going to go. I think they hired him knowing that if things went left this season, he could be the scapegoat. He could be the guy they tossed overboard. That's Ted Roof's career now. Professional scapegoat Ted Roof. Because you don't hire that guy thinking he's going to really turn around your defense. There's no evidence he can do that. None. Not for many years, if ever. But Ted Roof got fired earlier this week. We didn't mention that. He got fired on Sunday or Monday. Might have gotten fired on his day off. That's tough. You never get fired on your day off. Anyway, West Virginia, the latest would-be contender turned pretender in the Big 12 to part company with an assistant coach. Jordan Leslie, their defensive coordinator, was fired today. Now, I can't claim to be an expert on Jordan Leslie's CV and his coaching career. He's being replaced on the staff by Jeff Coons, who has been with Neil Brown since 2020, hasn't been a defensive coordinator since 2016. Leslie had been the defensive coordinator since 2021. He'd been on staff with Neil Brown since the Troy years for Coach Brown in 2016. So that makes it tough. It's always hard to fire one of your guys. Ask Chris Kleiman. Chris Kleiman had to fire Courtney Messingham. I bet that was one of the worst days of his life when he had to fire Courtney Messingham. It's hard to fire a guy who's been one of your guys for the better part of a decade or longer. But if you watch the Mountaineer defense, even though it's been scarred by injury throughout this year, they can't stop a nosebleed. They are a mess on defense. They've given up almost 100 points in their last 3 games combined. So Jordan Leslie is the scapegoat. This is scapegoat season in the Big 12 is what's happening right now. Teams that thought, hey, we were supposed to be better than this. And it can't be the head coach's fault. So let's toss somebody overboard just a few miles from the shore here. See if we can't salvage something. See if we can't take the heat off of Gus Malzahn or Neil Brown or Kyle Whittingham at Utah. See if a coordinator, a longtime coordinator, or in Roof's case, a short-time coordinator, being tossed overboard helps me maintain a little bit of stability myself. I have bad news for Neil Brown if you think that's going to work. It's not. It's not going to work. All right, one more headline today. Let me see if I can hit it right. It's time for the playoff roundup.
It's time for the 580 Sports Talk playoff roundup.
I missed my mark on the whip. I was whipping on the video stream. I kind of missed my mark on those. Playoff roundup. The World Series is just about over. I really thought we were going to get a banger of a World Series. Only one team has shown up, and it's the Los Angeles Dodgers, who won Game 3 of the World Series last night, 4-2 over the New York Yankees. Freddie Freeman's first inning 2-run home run, setting an early tone for the boys in blue out of Los Angeles, who held a 4-0 lead into the 9th inning. Alex Verdugo hit a 2-out, 2-run home run to make the final score look more respectable than it really was. The Yankees have totally and completely no-showed this series from an offensive perspective. They're hitting below 200 as a team. The Dodgers, for their part, are not hitting all that much better from an average perspective. I believe they're at, and I'm going to look up the number to make sure I get it exactly right here. They're only hitting like 210 or something along those lines with runners in scoring position. So it's not as though they have been particularly spectacular as a team on offense. Yeah, the Dodgers are hitting 213. The Yankees are hitting 186. The on-base percentages are roughly the same as well. The Yankees are getting on base at a 284 clip as a team. The Dodgers, 296. Here's the difference in the series. Talked about it at the beginning of the postseason. You've heard me use this phrase before. Ball go far, team go far. Ball go far, team go far. Joe Sheehan is the first baseball writer I saw to say that, so I'll credit him where it's due. Ball go far, team go far. Hit the ball over the fence. Hit for power. Hit extra bases. The Yankees as a team are slugging 294. They have 5 extra base hits in this series, 3 home runs, including Verdugo's that didn't mean anything last night. The Dodgers are slugging 457. They have 11 extra base hits. They have 5 home runs, including 1 in each game from Freddie Freeman, and that is the difference in this series. That is why the Dodgers are on the precipice of their first real World Series championship since 1988. No, I'm not counting the COVID year. That's a Mickey ring, as the kids say. That's a Mickey Mouse championship in the shortened season in those goofy playoffs in neutral sites. I don't count it. I also don't like the Dodgers. But this will be undisputed and undeniable and a little ironic if the Dodgers finish the deal, because this has not been the best year of Dodger baseball in the last 7 or 8. But this feels like it's going to be the team that gets it over the top and wins the ring. And sometimes that's how it happens. You have a good run in baseball, but you only maybe get the 1 ring, or you get the ring, but you have better teams that don't get the ring. Like, remember the Cardinals in the 2000s, the Pujols, Edmonds, Roland Cardinals, who were awesome from 03 to 05 and didn't get the job done. And then in 06, they won 84 games. And then that was the year they won the World Series. They still had all those guys. It just wasn't the best version of them, but they found a way in October. So baseball rewards you, I guess, in the end, if you're good enough for long enough. And these Dodgers, 1 win away from shutting everybody up, shutting up morons like me who like to discount the 2020 World Series and claiming a title in a full season for the first time since 1988. They can do it tonight. Luis Gil is on the mound for the Yankees. Gil led the major leagues in walks as a pitcher this year. The Dodgers don't chase pitches. That seems bad. However, the Dodgers are bullpenning it tonight. A gentleman I have literally never heard of named Ben Kasparius is the starting pitcher for the Dodgers. They're going to try and ham and egg it with the bullpen tonight and try and get 27 outs and try and claim the championship. Game 4 of the World Series is tonight. That's the playoff roundup. Those are your 580 Sports Talk headlines. When we come back, I wanted to point something out about the article that Jeremy Fowler wrote about the Chiefs and why the most important thing about the Chiefs building the dynasty, the most important reason they've been able to do it, maybe isn't what you think. Plus, ask me your questions. Ask me some questions. Ask me anything. That's coming up as we bring things home in this final hour, 580 Sports Talk. 534 on 580 Sports Talk. It's just Dan, that's me, with you the rest of the way. Whole gang will be here again tomorrow. Spencer taking today off, and Brendan's out at Allen Fieldhouse for KU and Washburn. It's a top 10 matchup in men's basketball. D1 number 1, KU. D2 number 10, Washburn. If you didn't know, now you know. Washburn Ichabod basketball is going to be real good this season. You should go out to Lee Arena and watch them. You should listen to them tonight. If you can't get out to Allen Fieldhouse for the exhibition contest, catch Brendan on the call on our sister station, Country 106.9. And, of course, you can catch the Ichabods all season long on Country 106.9. We got K-State basketball tonight here on 580 WIBW. K-State Sports Network takes over at 6. K-State, Fort Hays State men's basketball exhibition action tonight. Tomorrow, K-State women play Washburn. And so you'll be able to hear both of those broadcasts on our family of stations. Brendan will have the call from Bramlage on Country 106.9, and the K-State Sports Network broadcast will be right here on 580 WIBW. So that'll be a neat thing to do for tomorrow's show. Get your questions in for Ask Me Anything, 785-272-9429 on the Top City Metal Supply text line, or you can hit me up in the YouTube live chat. A couple of good ones in the live chat that I look forward to getting into, and a couple of good ones on the text as well. But still time to get them in. 785-272-9429 is that number. And watch us on YouTube. Check me out. 580 Sports Talk is the YouTube live stream. Jeremy Fowler's article today at ESPN.com, must read for Chiefs fans. The headline, the Chiefs are positioned to dominate the NFL's next decade. And there's a lot in here about, obviously, Patrick Mahomes, how great he is and how willing he is to not break the salary scale, to give his team the opportunity to add other players. And there's lots in here about Andy Reid and how healthy he's been and how willing he is to coach for at least another half decade, and the way that Andy Reid and Brett Veach have collaborated to build this roster, and how Clark Hunt has overseen the operation. And it's not all wine and roses in the article. The Chiefs do come in for another round of complaints about how relatively cheap they are, considering there's a big difference, as Fowler lays out, between the teams that are old money in the NFL and the teams that are like new venture capital money. The teams that are old money tend to have a little tighter purse strings when it comes to paying like front office personnel, non-essential personnel, I guess you would call them, spending money on like amenities for the locker room. Obviously, Chiefs players have noticed. That's why they got an F- in the NFLPA survey. So it's not perfect, but this operation is the best one that the NFL has, and they have the back-to-back Super Bowl rings in 3 and 5 years to prove it. But this is the part of the article that really stood out to me that Jeremy Fowler wrote. He wrote about Clark Hunt, and is a long expository comparing him to Robert Kraft, because the broad stroke here is the Chiefs are positioned to be what the Patriots were for the previous 20-odd years in the Belichick-Brady era, and one of the reasons they were able to be that was because of Robert Kraft's stewardship. And so there's a comparison between Kraft and Hunt. But this is what is written here that stood out the most to me. Hunt acts as overseer, but implicitly trusts his tandem of Reid and Veach, getting involved on very expensive contracts, but giving Veach the green light on day-to-day personnel matters. He says, I feel my role is to hire the best people that I can for the Kansas City Chiefs, give them the resources that they need, set the vision, and then let them do their jobs, Hunt said. I cannot tell you how important it is for a great organization, or an organization that aspires to greatness, to have an owner who understands that they are not the smartest person in the room. Just because they have the most money and they own the team and their name is on the letterhead, and the Hunt name has been on the letterhead literally the entire time the organization has existed. Clark Hunt, to his credit, and he deserves more credit for this than he does for anything else he's ever done, in my opinion, Clark Hunt, to his credit, has never let the success of the thing that he owns lead him to believe that he is the reason for it. An owner who doesn't believe he's the smartest guy in the world because he hired smart people who hired great players and made great decisions. That's all to Clark Hunt's credit, too. To hire Andy Reid, to get that done, to bring Brett Veach in when Chris Ballard left and promote Brett Veach and let him run the show. All of those things are positives. But more than anything else, when you look around the NFL, you look around professional sports, and you hear stories like the eternal struggle in Dallas between Jerry Jones, the owner, and Jerry Jones, the general manager, or the issues that the Chicago White Sox have run into over recent years because Jerry Reinsdorf got the idea in his head that he was a real baseball man. Or I could go on about the foibles of my own favorite Major League Baseball team, who also has an owner, Dick Monfort of the Colorado Rockies, who thinks he's the smartest guy in the room every time he walks into a room. That is the surest way to failure, the surest road to failure for any major sports team in any of the major leagues is if your owner, the guy who writes the checks, thinks he's smarter than the people that are supposed to be acquiring talent or coaching talent. David Tepper in Carolina thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. How far has that gotten the Panthers? How far have the White Sox gotten with Jerry Reinsdorf as their owner? Clark Hunt's understanding that he is not smarter when it comes to football than Andy Reid and Brett Veach is the single best thing that the Chiefs have going for them. Because when you write the big checks and trust the people who are telling you, hey, write that guy a big check, and then you go and you do it and you shut up, that makes you the best owner a team like the Chiefs or any team with any aspirations for success can possibly have. And I am loath to give too much credit to owners because that's all they should do, right? Write the checks, keep the stadium clean, keep the team and the fans with a healthy relationship. All the fans are ever owed is a good time. Make sure the fans are having a good time. You know how fans have a good time? Put a winning product on the field. Number one. That is the surest way to do it. That's what Neil Brown had all wrong. The West Virginia head coach, when he was talking about, I just hope the fans have fun. Man, you're losing. You're losing a lot. That's not fun. You're mediocre. Mediocre's not fun. Good is fun. It doesn't have to be a championship every year. Good every year should be the goal, especially in the NFL, in a capped league. The goal every year should be to be good. But that's all Clark Hunt owes Chiefs fans. Keep the team in town and try to win. And Clark Hunt's understanding that that's his job and that hoisting those Lombardi trophies at the end of the last 2 seasons and 3 of the last 5 doesn't make him all of a sudden the smartest man in the history of the NFL. That's the best thing that's ever happened to the Chiefs. It's a good article. You should go read it. Jeremy Fowler on ESPN.com. We'll do a little Ask Me Anything. Ask me some questions. Get them in on YouTube. Get them in on the text line, 785-272-9429. We'll have some extra random question Tuesday here on 580 Sports Talk. Winding down this edition of 580 Sports Talk, Dan Lucero with you, solo the rest of the way. Thought I'd do a little Ask Me Anything. I haven't done that in a really long time, and felt like answering some listener questions. So let's do that. You still get them in. YouTube live comments. If you're watching on YouTube, ask me a question. I'll answer it. Text it. 785-272-9429 to the Top Email Supply text line. Text from the 785. I love being asked about my alma mater, DePauw University. Question is, DePauw is 7-0 now. Just took down a pretty good Wittenberg squad. Yeah, they did. They wrecked Wittenberg. Absolutely blew them out on Saturday. They have 2 cakewalks left, Kenyon and Hiram. They're going to win those games by a gazillion points. Before the Monon Bell Classic, which is in Greencastle, home of the Tigers this season. Will the Tigers go deep in the playoffs? They are a top 10 team in the Division III poll, which they have never been to my knowledge. This is certainly the best DePauw football team since I matriculated there as a freshman back in 2004. And it might be the best one since old Raymond Gaumy Neal's unbeaten and unscored upon Tigers of 1933. I did a whole project on them my senior year. I think they can go very deep in the playoffs. But much like Division II, Division III has a regional system of playoffs. And so it's not good enough to be the best team in your conference or a top 4 seed. You got to be the best team in your region if you want to make a really long run. And I believe that at some point, DePauw's going to have to run into Mount Union or North Central College. And those are number 1 and number 3 in the country. And they will run into those sooner than they ought to. And that is where it will come to an end. But they're having a great year. They could win multiple playoff games, which they've never done as a program. Delighted for DePauw University football. Same texter asking if Asher, my son, is sleeping through the night. Asher is going to turn 5 months old here very soon. I guess you don't turn 5 months old. You just kind of become 5 months old. But he's about 5 months old. And he is sleeping like a champ, folks. I am delighted to report that my little guy can sleep. He slept 12 hours last night. I am bragging. That's a lie. I am, in fact, bragging that my little man can really sleep. And this is what's funny. He is now, today, I'm sharing this exciting news with you. Today, he's rolling over. He has figured out how to roll from his back to his stomach. Apparently, he figured it out in his sleep because I went to go wake him up this morning, and he was on his belly snoring. So, proud of my little guy, and he is a good sleeper. Thank you for asking about Asher. I appreciate that. From the YouTube live comments, Tyler asked for my Mount Rushmore of sports broadcasters. Man, that's a great question. It's hard to cut it down to 4. There have been a lot of them that have been very influential, certainly on a national level that you would know, but also on a more local and regional level that I would love to name. And I can't have any discussion of broadcasters who are my all-time favorites go by without mentioning the Washburn alum and the longtime voice of formerly the Denver Nuggets and now the Colorado Rockies, Jerry Schemmel, who I have gotten to know a little bit personally and is a wonderful person and a great broadcaster. But if I restrict it just to the national voices that people would know, and I've got to do a Mount Rushmore, I'll keep it strictly to ones that I've gotten to listen to and enjoy. So my apologies, if I leave out Jack Brickhouse or somebody that you maybe really loved growing up. I didn't get a lot of Jack Buck in my life, so apologies to that. But Vin Scully, easy, greatest storyteller to ever do this, to ever be behind a microphone and broadcast a sporting event. There has never been a greater storyteller than Vin. He's number 1. Keith Jackson is number 2. Voice of a sport. A voice of college football. And went out on the greatest college football game of all time, the Rose Bowl in 2005. So he is number 2 for me. Man, this is harder than I thought. There are a lot that I really, really like. I'm gonna put Kevin Harlan on there because I think Kevin Harlan is the best radio play-by-play person I have ever heard. He's very good on TV. Don't get me wrong, and has soundtracked a lot of great moments. But when you listen to him on the radio, listen to him call Monday Night Football on Westwood One when we air that. He's so good. He's so good at play-by-play on the radio. I think he's the best I've ever heard on the radio. So Kevin Harlan is on there. And the last on my Mount Rushmore of broadcasters, Al Michaels. It's got to be Al Michaels. Got to be Al Michaels because he has an iconic call in every sport. Hockey, Miracle on Ice. Basketball, not his main sport, but the Derek Fisher shot against the Spurs in the playoffs. Obviously, in baseball, he's got Dave Henderson's home run in the 86 ALCS, among others. And then, of course, football, so many. That's hard. That was a hard question, Tyler. Really hard. But yeah, that's what I do. Vin Scully, Keith Jackson, Kevin Harlan, and Al Michaels. One more question real fast I'll take from Vance in the YouTube live comments. Is the hot dog a sandwich? No, but it is a taco. I will not be explaining further. The final word is next. Let's wrap up this edition of 580 Sports Talk with a final word. I think I broke Vance's brain in the YouTube comments when I said a hot dog is a taco. Think about it. Everybody says this. Everybody wants to do the hot dog's a sandwich. What if it's a taco? Look at a taco next time and look at a hot dog. You tell me what a hot dog resembles. It resembles a taco more than it resembles a sandwich. I'm telling you. It's all about the presentation. And like you can put cheese on it, just like you can put on a taco. I'm just telling you, open your mind, expand it to new possibilities. Final word for me today. I can't believe it's already basketball season, but it's basketball season. We're going to see KU and K-State on the hardwood tonight against in-state MIAA competition. And I am fascinated, certainly, to see KU and how they play. But without Hunter Dickinson, it's not going to really be the full KU experience this year. We should get everybody on the floor for K-State tonight against Fort Hays State. I want to see how it looks. I want to see how it looks on both ends of the floor. I want to see how Jerome Tang deploys his big men, the role he has envisioned for Coleman Hawkins, how Doug McDaniel looks at the helm. Really fascinated to see this K-State game tonight. I'm going to have to do it on tape delay, though, because I'm going to the KU game. I'm headed out. K-State Sports Network takes over next. For Brendan, I'm Dan. This is 580 Sports Talk. See ya.